Maybe a couple minutes to talk a little bit more about the company that you're at and just kind of your, high level day to day or what you're up to more recently. Maybe we can start off with Taki.
Yes. Hi, I'm Taki. I work at Copilot AI, overseeing the R&D department. We're a startup with about 40 employees, and we build sales enablement products such as a lead generation tool. I joined the company in May 2020, so I've been in the company for about 2.5 years. I previously worked at Visio for 8 years, and also I worked at SAP for 5 years after graduating from UBC.
Awesome. Thank you. And over to Jared.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Jared Scott, working for Jane. Jane App is a medical management software that does everything from schedule management to billing to the clinical side of things, for like medical charting and stuff. And you've probably used it if you've gone to an RMT or a physio in Canada. Yeah, we're still in rapid growth stage. Currently, we just crossed the 350 line on our staffing, and so pretty exciting success story for a Vancouver-based company.
All right, and last but not least, Matt.
Yeah, thanks. Matt Carrico, I'm founder and CTO at ProShop ERP. We're a niche ERP platform for small and medium-sized aerospace manufacturers. We're at about 65 on our team at this point. We've got about 350 machine shops, mostly in the States, but kind of all over the world at this point, running our platform. I started out as a software developer over 20 years ago. Started out in content management systems and then sort of switched to manufacturing after that, and have just really found it a fascinating industry, and just tons of interesting problems to solve. Just continuously kind of evolving, and it's a kind of a wonderful set of people to serve.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so first real question. We've been in like a post-COVID market era. I'm going to put quotes over post-COVID market era for the last few months, and it's seemingly not going away with some more recent turns in the market. So in the sense of how your company is doing amidst that, maybe you can just talk a little bit about anything that's happened as far as changes and perspectives to your hiring or your staffing, just something that maybe stands out about how you're dealing with the current market situation. And we'll start off with Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we're still doing really well, given the market conditions. We're pretty much on target for our sales and growth numbers so far this year. We're a bootstrapped company, so we're not, feeling any pressure from a next round of funding that we need to be heading towards. But yeah, I mean, we're also really aware of the turmoil that's going on, and we're kind of trying to stay as nimble as we possibly can, and maybe slow down hiring just a little bit, just in case. But yeah, I mean, right now it just feels like this in-between time for us where, hopefully this is just a natural sort of, part of the cycle, and even a little bit of froth can be kind of knocked off the industry, so that, there's a bit of talent available to be working on, different problems than maybe we're getting funded a couple of years ago, during the kind of headiest times of this latest boom. So, I'm optimistic, and things are good for us. So.
Yeah. Well said. And Taki, over to you.
Yeah, we're doing well considering the current economy. One change we have made though as a company is to actually focus on sustainable revenue growth. And So we actually do have fewer employees in the company compared to a year ago due to high turnover when the market was better earlier. But we actually have been mindful of backfilling for those positions, and instead we've been focusing on efficiency, which actually helping us staying lean with people who truly believe in the company and sharing the good company's vision. So yeah, it's challenging time, but it's actually going quite well.
Okay, awesome. And Jared?
Yeah, it turns out even in a down economy, people still need help with health related problems. So we've thankfully, knock on wood, we've not seen any side effects in our business. Certainly, what used to be in vogue of burning cash is not the popular way to approach things now. So we went from maybe being the less shiny company. Our approach for the last 5 years has been to stay cash positive, and that wasn't cool or in vogue. And now all of a sudden we're getting called by people that want to interview us because this is like now the cool way to run a business. So I'm glad that we were fiscally responsible during the past few years, and that's giving us the ability to take care of our employees now.
Yeah, fiscally responsible, that's definitely a key. And it might also come from all of your experiences, the more longer experiences you've had being able to see ups and downs with markets, which is also a great reason to have a more experienced CTO, or at least someone who understands fiscal, conservative, kind of practical values. We did notice that last night when the CTO group was meeting about how this is concentrating some of the projects that we're working on. It has also been a concentration of what teams need funding for those projects. So to the next question, the meat and potatoes of team composition, can you just talk a bit about your tech teams in terms of their size, the composition, and where you're seeing the needs or the growth for over the next year, let's say? And we'll kick it off with Jared first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've worked in different form factors with teams where we've followed the front end, back end ops model, and maybe feature team style model. And there's pros and cons to all of them. I think a part of it just depends on where your company's at. If you're in that very early stage, trying to get to product market fit as fast as possible so you can keep the lights on. Feature teams that are pumping out features might be the best option for you. But as you get to a more established customer base that have expectations that V1 of whatever feature that you've released is continuing to be worked on, and when a bug gets reported, it's being fixed quickly. And if something's slow or clunky, you notice before they do and you fix it, that requires a different structure. And so we've structured our teams to be pretty cross-functional. We have kind of two sides of the house that we think of, one being kind of value stream areas, so kind of business domain areas. Each team is responsible kind of from production to front end, including a UX designer that's on that team. And they really own that part of the business. And then I'll just put a little plug for a book called Team Topologies. It gives you some pretty good tips on structuring teams as you scale, and ways to communicate and manage. And then centralized teams for those centralized problems that you have. I don't know what the breaking point is exactly, but I'd say somewhere around maybe the 30 person, when your dev team's kind of growing to that like 30 person mark, you might want to start thinking about that centralized team or platform and enablement group that's providing tools and guardrails and stuff for your teams to be able to be more efficient, so that those value stream teams can just be pumping out value to customers as quickly as possible.
Okay, yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. Is there any other signals other than like team size where you'd start to see the need to switch the team composition to having more, like an onion or supporting team structure? Is there any breaking points or big shifts? Yeah.
Well, I mean, certainly at the individual team level, there's I mean, a lot of ideas around that 5 to 8 2 pizza team size. I've seen teams that operate a lot differently like that than that, in that 10 to 20. I mean, Taki might be able to talk a little bit about how SAP does that, for example. I think they're slightly larger teams, but those don't seem to be very nimble in my experience. So yeah, that 5 to 8 is a good number and the smaller teams, they're good for maybe a POC type of project. But you have a team of 2 or 3 and, one person's on vacation and one person's sick and now you've got one poor sucker that's like responsible for everything. So that's not a good setup either. So too big and it's just too much noise. People, you see it in stand-ups, if you have 10 to 12 or 15 people, eyes are glazed over. There's not a lot of connection between the teams. And then I guess the same kind of goes on the organizational level. If you have 10, 15, 20 teams, can they all really like sync with each other in an effective way? So we've kind of grouped our teams in about 5 teams, 4 to 5 teams per group. And those are the teams that work closely together. So I think that 5 to 8 kind of works both at the individual level as well as you grow your teams and at the team level.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Over to Taki. Again, that was the general question about team composition and the direction you're heading.
Yes. So we are a small and mighty team of 12 engineers, including myself. So we actually also like Jared, we organize ourselves into cross-functional teams and each managing a different product. So one team we have is managing the core product, which is the lead generation tool. There are 8 engineers along with a product manager and designer in the team. And we have another team that has 3 engineers with, again, a product manager and designer and working on a separate product, a video product. Yeah, I mean, it's I really like this cross-functional team setup. I think they truly own their mission product and collaborate highly together, including cross-functional team members like product management and UX. So I found that this competition has been working quite well. But it's interesting. It's kind of flu season. People are getting sick, and so my one team of the 3 engineers. One guy gets sick, and then all of a sudden, the team is kind of moving slow. It's kind of expected. It's unfortunate, but for us, I mean, this is we only have 12 engineers, and so this is what we're working with. In the future, I would like to have more like cross-functional teams added to the mix, because again, I found it's working quite well, just owning the mission together as a team, and that's been helpful. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, just quick follow-up on that. As far as like the software development lifecycle methodology, have you found any success with certain types of agile or scrum type of setup for the more smaller, nimble teams broken up into 2 or 3 cross-functional? Is there a certain platform or way of working that works best for that?
Yeah, so we definitely try being agile. I think agile makes the most sense for this type of cross-functional team that really promotes the collaboration through agile methodology. We're definitely working on it. I think there are areas that we can do better, but I think agile works quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then over to Matt for the general question.
Yeah, we're about 17 on the product and engineering teams. This is sort of, we have engineers, front end, product management, UX and design, QA, and product operations, sort of all under that umbrella. And it's pretty interesting because right now at our size, fairly small, it really is all about this topology shift, taking what became too big of a team, too many communication challenges, not sort of enough responsibility at the sort of team, smaller unit level. So yeah, it's interesting, Jared, laying that out, Taki having that too. And so, yeah, for me right now, it's about the topology shift and also actually, really leaning back into agile principles as well. I feel like where we've kind of got to a little bit is an iterative waterfall, within agile. And so, these ideas of kind of individuals and interactions over processes and tools, responding to change over following a plan. These are kind of things that we need to be remembering, on my team right now. And we've seen, with the sort of one breakout team that we've done, we've seen really, really good results. And so it just, hearing it from these guys, the books, team topology is great. It just reinforces that we're on the right track. An interesting sort of piece is we have a fairly technical delivery team that we put a front end person on, and the feedback I got from that was that they were surprised that having a front end person really helped focus them on keeping client challenges in mind, and like working into what they're working on, stuff that will actually impact clients, rather than maybe sometimes on the technical side we build tools without sort of sometimes the end game in mind, but the end game is providing a value to the clients type of thing. So for challenges, I think we're growing fairly fast, but we're also fairly small. So we're in a really, it's a tough, challenging, exciting time where we're always a little bit behind on where we feel like we need to be and need to get to. And, just sort of keeping up with that pace of change is challenging.
Yeah, that's a great point on team composition. Having like a traditional back-end team, they may not get the user experience as nicely as someone coming in with a different perspective. So getting that composition right. Just to loop back on that the agile light or Scrum light, have you found any techniques in order to keep it in more of the true agile vein, where the engineers are empowered and they want to make the changes themselves, and they're kind of driving the specs a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, that does, come back to the topology and the cross-functional teams for me, just like all the right voices in the room when you're making decisions, so that if someone maybe, doesn't need to be involved at that level, at least they have the context when they need to make that decision. And so, it's like optimizing for the flow of work through your sort of software development lifecycle, from idea through to delivering, value to the client. And, not to get too sort of, into the weeds, but really avoiding local optimizations and keeping in mind that true flow of work, and, not overburdening bottlenecks by, generating a ton of waste that you can never actually process. That like this is for me agile and lean and these kind of things.
Okay, yeah, great perspective on it. That makes a lot of sense. Instead of trying to teach the engineers to think like UX designers, have the UX designers within the conversation, so that because as we know, engineers love to solve complex problems, and if they don't understand the complex problems, they will make the most amazing complex situation out of a simple problem. So yeah. And I mean that in a good way, I guess. Yeah. Another question here is just on your roles as CTOs and or technical leadership. What have you had as far as lessons along your illustrious careers? Maybe some big turning points or perspective shifts in various team sizes. But if you could just share maybe a story of a specific challenge that challenged you and maybe had some good lessons learned out of it, that'd be awesome to hear. At least you don't have to pick your worst one, but maybe one that was more enjoyable for the outcome. We'll start off with Matt on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've been sort of in a technical leadership position for, a long time, but I really only identify as a CTO in the last 2 or 3 years. And, for me, there was a really jarring moment when I, was kind of challenged by a guy who's now a real mentor to me as a CTO, to realize that I really had my head down and I really was not, kind of fulfilling, that role and what it needed to be in my organization. And this was really, getting my head up and, realizing that, the kind of like technical abilities are what got us here, but it's like our soft skills and our ability to kind of like interact at the business level that really, allows us to be effective CTOs, that our organizations need. So, and so, in the past few years, it's really been about, getting, my kind of softer skills in line, starting to really kind of notice my own emotions, notice emotions in other people, really practicing that, continuously, being very mindful, a lot of mindfulness type of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that for me, it was a really, really great challenge. And, I feel like now, I have a good perspective of what I need to kind of learn and, improve on as to be a good CTO.
Okay, yeah. And that seems to be quite a challenge for a lot of engineering mindseted people. So yeah, I'd imagine that there's no Stack Overflow answer to, how do I develop soft skills? So all right, over to Jared next.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I guess I'll briefly build on what Matt was talking about of the kind of principles. Don't forget your principles piece. So, I think especially as you scale, I've certainly seen, we have roughly 18 teams right now in my group, and you do need some processes to make sure that communication flow is happening, that those dependencies across those teams are being managed. But somehow you still need to create a connection and a realistic amount of information that the people on those teams can absorb. You can't be in every little thing that's going on every little team across 18 teams. That's just too much data, right? You're not going to get any work done. So, I think there's a tendency when we grow and we start to add processes that those become, we lose the reasons why, we lose the principle underneath those processes. So I think, and I certainly haven't perfected this, but that's something that I think is important to constantly be checking in on, maybe every 3 months or every 6 months with your leadership team. Like, do we still remember why we're doing this? And is it still providing the value that we needed from it, and be willing to tweak those processes. What I often say to the teams that are reacting to change is, you don't know if this change is going to be effective until you see it in practice, and it's always going to feel uncomfortable at the beginning, even if it's the right decision to adopt it. So change is hard. Change feels uncomfortable. Think about when you go to the gym and start to do squats for the first time. It sucks the next day, right? But after a while, it's actually, you realize it's really good. But 3 months later, 6 months later, probably 3 months is a good litmus test. You can check back in and say, like, is this actually working? Is it working the way that we're doing it? Do we need to tweak it? And kind of use that kind of quarterly rhythm a little bit to do those check-ins. And then just, the really obvious one, I'm sure everyone in the room has heard of these things, but they're real. So again, I would also recommend checking in on this. Conway's Law is a real thing. You ship your organization, and unfortunately, if you're a very sales-led company, that can often lead to shipping a lot of tech debt if you're not careful. So I think one way to approach that is your product, the way that you represent outside of the business does not necessarily need to be a one-for-one for how you structure your dev team. Your dev team should be designed to complement the architecture that will create a great product that can scale and that can be maintainable. And sometimes you need to have a slightly different interface for how you then show up in the rest of the world for different customer segments or different ways that you show up outside of the company. Yeah, I'll stop there and give Taki.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a lot of good info, especially around fighting the bureaucratic bloat through reviewing the processes, because it's so true. Many processes just get stuck there forever and no one knows why they're there. Yeah. Awesome. Yes. And then over to Taki.
Yes. And yeah, I'm definitely still learning to be effective in this role every day. But my goal is to build a really self-running team. And in the past, I'm like Matt, I am a software engineer at heart, and I just tend to just find the problems and try to solve them by myself. But it's not great, and I do have great capable teams. So I've been really telling myself to trust and empower that that capable team to find the problems on their own and solve the problems on their own, and just coach them through if necessary. And really, this approach actually has been helping me to have more time for more of a long-term strategic planning for the team, and also being able to spend more time coaching the team is actually helping the entire team as well. So yeah, that's my experience, and I'm trying to do it every day.
Awesome. Yeah, and with your experience, you can coach the team effectively. You're probably actually getting way more work done by coaching and upskilling.
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
hard to let go of the programming. All right, and yeah, we had talked about this a bit yesterday, but just in terms of trends in the talent market and the roles you're looking for, we already talked a bit about team composition, but how are you seeing the changes in hiring? Have you noticed the market impacts on that yet? Is that something you're looking forward to? Maybe just comments on the hiring and all that. And we'll start off with Taki.
Yes. To be honest, I haven't actually been on top of the talent market lately because we actually haven't been hiring. But just my experience talking to some of the candidates in the past, I felt that the talent market, especially for senior level engineers, it was pretty hot earlier this year because after COVID, I found that a lot of companies out there, especially the US companies, and started to have remote positions, and I saw more of those companies, and also some of the companies that only open the office in the Toronto area now coming to BC, and I found that the comp expectation from the senior engineers were higher. So I'm not sure if if it's still the same right now, but that's kind of what I remember seeing.
Yeah, that's right. It's the bit of for the Vancouver based, BC based, it's a little bit tricky because the Toronto, you tended to be the higher market now that we're more remote hybrid.
Yeah.
Hopefully it equilibrizes, if that's the word. All right, over to Matt.
Kind of like Taki, I don't have my finger right on the pulse of this, so I asked our HR team, if they had any kind of insight, and they basically they're telling me that we're still finding talent from the main channels that have been the most active over the last 10 years. I think my sense is that's like LinkedIn and word of mouth, or referrals kind of thing. They say they've seen a shift in the type of candidates that are applying to, sort of younger, very early in the career, coming out of a degree program, type of thing. We don't hire so quickly that we have a lot of information, but we did recently make a senior hire that I think, maybe reflects the slightly shifting landscape with, some of the big companies, taking their foot off the gas, but also letting some people go, type of thing. And so, yeah, and they're also saying that, maybe just with kind of generational shifts in what younger candidates are looking for in companies, they're also seeing that change a little bit too. People really wanting to have a sense of purpose where they go to work, really valuing flexibility, even being willing to, take a lower base salary, in exchange for some of these really important things they're looking for. And then, yeah, I mean, whatever we can do to, assure them that they're going to come into a company that's going to give them hard problems to work on, interesting problems, some autonomy, all of that is really important. And, I'll say, yeah, just, as a real huge kudos to our HR team, they do a great job of finding good cultural fit candidates. And they sent me the stat that over the 2.5 years of the pandemic, we only lost 2 people. Sort of voluntarily, and that's when we went from 26 to 65, and we also, and I hope they're okay me trumpeting this, but we went from 18% women to 30% over that time, as a BC tech company. So we're really proud of that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good stats. Wow. Do you have really great massage therapy? I guess that's the key.
I don't think so. I think we have a really great HR team, and really good supports for people. And yeah, I mean, I was going to answer the question about culture, if it came up, but for me, what I really see as being good culture in a company like ours is, listening to people and then applying our sort of problem solving hats to figuring out creative ways to give, some version of what they're asking for. Like for me, that's how we've built a great culture. And it's not, ping pong table or these kind of things. So.
Yeah. The soft skills again, kind of coming back to that. Yeah, that's great. And acting on what they're asking for. That's awesome. It's good insight. All right, over to Jared.
Yeah, I just second what Matt was saying. That especially the younger developers, there's a strong sense of purpose and wanting to do something that matters. That definitely exceeds the ping pong table. Actually, I'd say they're with that strong sense of purpose. There's that same feeling in their personal lives and wanting to be able to, when work's done, be done and go out and hike and explore or do whatever it is that makes them happy. And that's kind of work-life separation, I think, is more and more desired. At the same time, having the flexibility for, if my mind works best in the evening, can I do my coding then? Yeah, lots there. I've done quite a bit of hiring this year. I think we've hired 50 on the dev and product combined area. And certainly we're seeing kind of interesting trend is there's a mix of generalist and specialist. Back in the early days, for me at least, like late 90s, early 2000s, you had your DBA and you had your sysadmin person, like these very specialized roles, your Java developer. And then I think over the last probably 8-9 years, I've seen a lot of expectations that developers kind of need to know everything, right? How to administer Docker containers, and how to be a database expert, and how to write React. I think there's maybe a resurgence a little bit on the specialty side of things. Like, there's the generalist developer that's going to write features for you. But if you want to go find a CI/CD expert, those are tough to find. or a really experienced SDET or something. And so that's definitely a trend that we're seeing is if you're looking for one of those types of roles, you're going to pay a premium.
Yeah.
We're seeing it's probably plus 20% on whatever your base, whatever your normal base salary is for a senior or staff or intermediate level developer. You want that same level, but an SRE, you're going to have to tag on a bit of a premium. And then the other thing that we're seeing is there is a bit of a drop in the competitive offer side of things. I think if I looked at the beginning of this calendar year, even just in the last 3 months, we're getting less pushback on our initial offer on salary.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was pretty hot there, so it's not necessarily like is it coming back to normal kind of thing?
I would say the expectations haven't gone down.
Okay.
But they're not coming and saying, some outrageous number that they also have a competitive offer for. So we're able to kind of hold our ground a little bit more and say, well, this is what we pay for this role.
Right. And then hopefully that also means you'll get people who are interested in your mission and want to solve your problems.
Right. Yeah. I mean, our recruiter is amazing at selling this is why you would want to work at this company. But if you're talking about $100,000 a year difference in offers, that's a little hard for a developer to roll the dice and be like, okay, sure, I'll walk away from 6 figures for that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I was also wondering with your specialization needs, if that's also due to your scale, because I imagine you're at a pretty massive scale point, just the amount of data flowing, you probably have higher needs. Maybe that's where it crosses the threshold from the generalists.
Yeah, I mean that platform and enablement group that I was talking about, those centralized teams, they're really meant to be specialists in certain areas that can enable the rest of the teams to run faster. And in those teams, we really need people that have very specific expertise. For example, we have a CI/CD team that is all about fast release, all of the pipelines around that, and I'm sure there's developers that could be interested, but if we want to hire somebody off the street that really has that expertise where, they're just demanding a higher salary because that's what everyone else is willing to pay. So.
Yeah, those key pieces. Cool. That's good. Another question was on the hybrid virtual teams and getting more remote. How do you effectively manage as you become more distributed, or perhaps some of you are already there, but just as it even becomes an expectation around the hiring that they'll be set up at a home office? How has that shifted the way you've managed? Has it shifted it at all? Just kind of a question around that. And we'll start with Matt on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, at the point where I started managing, large enough teams for it to, be something that I needed some kind of philosophy behind. It was about the beginning of the pandemic. And so everybody was heading home, at that time. And so, I really, it really resonated for me, this idea that the old way of managing in the office, by whose bum is in the seat and, who's engaged and, just all these sort of signals that we might be able to rely on, that's not, the best version of managing that we can be doing. And so, kind of instead, focusing on outcomes, not activity, these kind of things, leaning into providing this purpose and autonomy and giving people hard and interesting problems. And then, being available for people and providing them sort of, mentoring and coaching when they need it, is all kind of, been the management style that I've adopted and I think is appropriate for, remote work and distributed teams and that kind of thing. So, that's kind of what I'm doing or what we're doing. And I really see like my next challenge with remote management is like managing for innovation remotely. I also have the sense, like when you hear the Tim Cooks, you know, at Apple telling everyone they've got to come back, you know, to the spaceship campus because nobody can innovate remotely. I think it's a similar version to the like bums in seats. Like we just haven't quite totally figured out how to do the discovery phase, you know, remotely, where that kind of serendipity is somehow built into, you know, our communication platforms or our methods of working. So for me, that's the next challenge, because we're not coming back to the office and we still need to innovate. So and we're
Yeah,
not Tim
harder
Cook.
to, yeah. Well, they also have to, they don't want to, you know, have the spaceship empty for sure. But it makes sense, you know, because it's easier to track production metrics, but innovation metrics, I'm sure there's ways to do it, but it's harder to get that, foresight when you're trying to discover ideas. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, over to Jared on this one.
Yeah, I honestly haven't cracked this nut yet, to be honest. You know, I think it's challenging. The remote approach is definitely challenging us to be better leaders. The butts in seat is a lazy approach to managing teams, and honestly, it's a terrible metric. You know, and even you know, the perception of engagement doesn't necessarily translate to output or impact, right? You know, in meetings or whatever. So it's something that we're actively working on. I actually had a sit down with Sleuth this morning to try to learn more about their tool. So we're evaluating a bunch of vendors right now on this particular area where we can give not necessarily Big Brother watching kind of approach to things, but more of a, how can we give tools to the development teams so that when they're doing their retrospectives, they're able to have tough conversations with each other around not just, you know, agile metrics like velocity, but more insights from that kind of ideation to production running and everything kind of in between. How long are tickets sitting and waiting for review? You know, how long does it take from the time an incident happens to get it resolved? Kind of a central place to be able to have all of those metrics very easy to digest, and then as a team iterate on getting better on those. I think you know, there's some good healthy peer pressure that can happen to like want to improve those metrics as a team, and if somebody's not pulling their weight, I think they'll bubble to the top pretty quick there. So again, work in progress, I'd say. On the innovation side, also very interesting problem. We had a leadership team meeting to talk about pricing structure recently, and we all came to the office and we got more done in like 4 hours than we probably would have in like 3 weeks in the remote. So I'm not sure how to replicate that fully on the remote. I think there's value in bringing the team together on some cadence. You know, we're looking this next year at 2 times per year that every development team will see each other in person. So even though we're fully distributed at this point, so.
Yeah, we recently just did the same with quarterlies and one big yearly, where we fly everyone out, which is kind of funny because the cost savings from, you know, not having a big office kind of evaporate quickly when you have to fly people everywhere. But it's totally worth it, especially for just syncing up on the soft skills so that you can be more productive when you're remote and making those harder decisions, banging things out. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I haven't heard a really great solution yet, other than just figuring out different metrics where you can bubble up. And for the innovation side, it's always been about, the net progress. As we all know from software engineering, the worst thing in the world is when you're half done something and you're told to scrap it, or if you actually completed some code and you can get rid of it because it wasn't actually aligned exactly to the problem. So that's always been a challenge, even in the office. All right, over to Taki.
Yes, I think we're taking a little bit of different approach than the other Matt. We're actually more promoting the in-office approach. So our company, we believes in collaboration, and so we really organize ourselves into the cross-functional teams I mentioned earlier. And what I found was that the engineers tend to work on tasks assigned to them, but in silos. So, and this problem was really amplified in this remote setting, and having a Zoom call with a colleague is mentally more work to initiate than tapping on someone's shoulder in the office, and especially us having junior engineers as well who started their career in this remote environment. I think that was a little bit of a challenge that they had to go through. So we're actually we're tackling the problem by bringing in more of the in-office and in-person collaboration. Luckily, we only hired local talent so far, so we're actually able to do this. We are doing twice a week in the office right now. So people can just come in, make an in-person connection, and yeah, also really do things in the office that are more effective to be done in person. And yeah, so I'm seeing better collaboration and also teamwork coming from the team right now. So yeah, it's interesting time and interesting problem, very new problem. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how it turns out.
All right. Yeah, that's a good one. That's convenient if everyone's able to hit up the office or even hubs.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I had a question on here about tools. So we had talked a bit about how to get this going with, there's a million different SaaS tools out there, but maybe you can just mention a couple that you found very useful as far as like getting some team pulses, cultural check-ins, anything like that. If you've had any useful tools, it'd be great just to share that with everyone so they can check it out themselves. Let's start off with Jared this time.
Yeah, for the cultural side, we do use Culture Amp for biannual survey across the teams, and then that bubbles down to every manager can see their team, and then director can see their team, and then myself. So we take it really seriously. We're very transparent with the results. I'll usually do an all hands with the dev team and present our findings, and we try to come up with at least a couple of key actions that we're going to take to really show that we're listening and we're making change. The dev managers do a weekly pulse check on some pretty simple stats, like, do you feel like you're getting meaningful work done? Are you feeling stressed? Are the tools feeling like they're working for you or in your way? Those types of, I think it's 5 questions that we put there. And they'll also use Culture Amp, but that's a weekly survey, and we can kind of watch trends over time. So see if a team's kind of feeling kind of down in the dumps, or if they're feeling good, or, we can intervene quickly.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a good way to go.
And then of course, our ticketing system and stuff for like velocity. We've had a real emphasis this year on predictability. How predictable is your team? When you say you're going to ship something, do you ship it? And we've seen kind of, I think when we really first started tracking these metrics, predictability around 30% or something, going up to now we're seeing pretty consistently teams being in that like 80% range, which is kind of the target that we were looking for. So, and then I mentioned Sleuth. That's kind of in the same vein as far as kind of like overall metrics. We do use Datadog, or in past lives I've used New Relic or tools like that to kind of watch for golden signals. If you haven't read the Google SRE book and you run a SaaS product, I recommend it. Kind of keeping an eye on those 4 golden signals, and there's lots of tools that can help you kind of keep your eye on those things. So
yeah, Awesome. That's great. I've put some links in the chat, by the way. And if anyone has questions, feel free to pop them into chat. You'll find a bunch of my comments in there. All right, over to Taki.
Yes, we've been focusing on productivity, so we actually started to use two tools recently. One is called Umano. It's umano.tech. It helps integrating the data from Jira, Bitbucket, and Slack, and gives a nice view of sprints and their metrics. So my team's using it and monitor metrics to improve their productivity today. So I just took a look. It looks nice. I'll definitely check it out. And the other one I use personally is Visier Analytics for Jira. I use it sometimes because it actually helps me perform a very free-form analysis on our Jira data. It's pretty powerful in the analytics capabilities, so I sometimes use that. But yeah, those two are the ones that I use. Yeah.
Awesome. All righty, and then over to Matt.
Yeah, we use something called Know Your Teams for sort of check-ins and icebreakers. I like the idea. We send out surveys, but not on that kind of frequency, Jared. I really like those simple questions once a week, so that's something I might try and do. And then yeah, it's a bit of a tool, but I do find that one-on-ones are a really effective tool for management and keeping the pulse on the team. So I do a skip level at least with everybody on the team once a month. And because we're small, I can still do that. People come with their issues. It's amazing. Everyone, really does come prepared, and you can really dive into, the issues people are seeing.
Okay, yeah. That's. I mean, in summary, the listening aspect seems to be for a lot of people. If they didn't translate that over into the remote culture, then they may be at risk for a toxic culture. So that's great to happen. We did have a question in the chat. Lewis is asking, do you have any tips for mentoring junior staff remotely? It seems like folks who are early in the career, and Taki was mentioned this too, are missing out on the opportunity to drop in on senior leaders that they would have in the office. So around like the coaching and getting the juniors up to speed. Maybe Jared, let's start with you on that.
Yeah, I think what might have happened organically with people bumping into each other in the kitchen at the coffee machine, it just isn't going to happen in the remote world. So it probably requires some intentional intervention. I know for our really junior folks, we'll actually assign a mentor that person is tied to. It's a good opportunity for the mentor to have real that mentorship that they're doing can factor into their personal growth when you're talking to annual check-ins or biannual check-ins. And then for the mentee, that's really critical to kind of getting them up to speed. And then it's not just junior folks, actually. I've seen the same kind of challenge in the last couple of years with somebody that's, say, an intermediate or senior aspiring to the next level. If they're just kind of isolated and working through their tasks, there isn't as much opportunity for that. Hey, let's just whiteboard this idea, so we're actually in the middle of formalizing seniors who want to be a staff developer program, right, where we're going to have like assigned books and an assigned mentor for that. So we're about 2/3 of the way through kind of defining what that looks like exactly. And
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the career progression is so important for everyone, which makes sense. All right, over to Matt on that one.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I feel like we've dropped the ball at times on people. you know, like these days, I think it's really about pair programming and, you know, just almost kind of swarming junior developers when they first come on to be available for them, work with them, that kind of thing. And I guess this is the point I'd put a plug in for really fostering a culture on your engineering teams of like team metrics over individual metrics. You know, and I think for us, that's really helped. You know, allow senior engineers to take the time to spend it with junior developers and see the sort of like overall lift that we get from bringing people along as being positive, you know, and something that reflects well on them. So yeah, I think that's really important, you know, like team metrics over individual.
Right, yeah, great point, factoring that in, because if you see your leads or seniors maybe producing less but lifting up the team, you shouldn't penalize them for taking time to help and coach. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Techie, over to you.
Yeah, I think we've been actually spending quite a bit of time and actually focusing on fostering the career growth. And one thing that I'm doing in this remote setting, especially, is that I have more frequent one-on-ones with the team so that I can actually focus on helping them grow. And also, you know, like we are somewhat avoiding this problem by going back to the office as well. So yeah, it's a basic, yeah,
It's cheating.
mix of both. Yes, it's cheating. Yes, yeah. But yeah, and then other things we do is the projects are run by, you know, senior engineers in our team and always assigned with a junior engineer. So, you know, they work together on the same project, and you know, they naturally learn from just working on the same project.